All right, and welcome back to another Conquest Corner. On this particular episode, we took a break for a few days. Mostly I was busy and Moist's birthday and things like that, but took a break for a few days, and now we are back going through the updates from October for all the different factions for Conquest. For this particular video, we're going to be discussing the updates for Dweg. Not too many army updates, although a reasonable amount of things related to units. I will preface by saying Dweg is not an army that I honestly play. I'm not big on. They're fine. I guess I've already talked about the parts I like and don't like about them. They're essentially, in certain ways, and this is sort of a thing they always do at dwarfs, is a sort of standoff. We take the core, we take some rules, and we don't interact in the same way that other people do, and that's just not my sort of play style. But I'll still look at them overall and talk about my thoughts on them. Keep in mind, if you're looking to pick up anything for Conquest, we do have a discount code in the show notes. It's Train Kickers. It saves you 10%, helps us out as well. So if you're wanting to pick up any Dweg or just about anything else, it's a good way to do it for a little bit cheaper at least. All right, so let's go and take a look. It should be reasonably short because there's not too many changes. For anyone who hasn't watched one of these before, new is on the left, old is on the right. I try to display a little bit of both so you can compare them in the spots where we see some differences. And the first difference I put up to there, so we can scroll down to see where that happens. No overall army rules changes, no particular way in which they function overall. Steel Shaper had a very small change. Normally they highlight changes in red. This was not highlighted in red, so when you look here you don't see it, although it's a very simple change. Indifference towards life is identical, but you used to, when you declined a duel, become broken. That was an old rule in the game. So indifference to life meant you didn't break when that happened. You no longer actually break. You now take a variety of other effects when you decline duels. It's not actually technically breaking, but there is downsides, of course, as well. You don't take any of those particular downsides. So it is functionally the same because the rule that it adjusted has now slightly changed. For anyone who doesn't know, if maybe you haven't been reading through this or keeping up with it, or maybe your army just doesn't do this in general, is that Aura Death has changed. So Aura Death used to be every stand that you touched with one of your stands gives you the Aura Death that that stand has. So if my opponent had, say, Aura Death 2 in a unit, every stand of theirs that I touch, or my stands that is touching, I should really say it that way. Every one of my stands that's touching one of yours, I'm taking an Aura Death 2 hit. So it tallied up that way. Aura Death now is if you are touching the unit in any way whatsoever, you take the total amount of Aura Death. Not a per stand. Now it's a yes/no sort of system. That means everything that every army had that did Aura Death now would be very weak. So if we take a look at Gifted in Gifted in Fire before. It used to give extra innovation, no longer does, but it also gave you Aura Death +1 to a max of 2. Well, if you had, say, a 3-stand front, that essentially counts for 3. What they did now is it gives you Aura Death +3, but the maximum now is a 6. So for this particular thing, it essentially works the same, but they had to change the way it works to make sure that you actually get the amount of Aura Death that they want. Aura Death numbers essentially are always up, but it's a yes or no. You don't take it per stand, you just take a total amount. So, like I said, Gifted in Flame changed. Few other small changes. Memory of Breath, which if you noticed before, gave you, I'll put it there, I'll make sure it's, there it is, visible on both screens now. Memory of Breath gave you Aura Death +1. Now it's just Aura Death +3 to the regiment. So nice and easy. Other one, and this one, okay, maybe it's me because I just don't know. And I looked through and I did some searching and all. Lava Shots used to say, if you're a wizard, you gain precise shots. Lava Shots now says, and this is obviously an upgrade, so it's going on a character. It's a mastery. This character stand gains precise shots. So that means you no longer have to be a wizard for precise shots to work. The people who have shooting are wizards. At least currently. Now, they could either be future-proofing it, or maybe there's something that I'm missing, but it only relates to characters. And I don't see other ways, based off of how many things that you can take, and like I don't see other ways to make that happen. If not, then so be it. But they remove that restriction, and that if it's not meaningful yet, it very well could be meaningful at some point. I said, or maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's some little piece, but I haven't seen it talked about either. So if I'm missing something, let me know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube if I am missing something, because I'm very curious about that. All right, Flame Berserkers. They are now 10 points cheaper. So I guess they thought they were a little bit much. Flame Berserkers, I think, are actually quite good. At least from the things that the way in which I saw people running them, I thought they were rather good. Not like amazing, but I like them in general. They used to be Aura Death 2, so that was 2 per stand. Now there's Aura Death 4. Take any of the stands, take a total of Aura Death 4. And the other thing we're going to notice that they did to a couple different units, including Hold Warriors and at least 1 or 2 others, is that now the standard is automatic. So the unit is 10 points cheaper, but you're also now saving 10 points on an upgrade you used to take. So effectively 20 points, because you were probably going to take the standard. I mean, when you think about Dweg, you were thinking about probably hitting people with powerful weapons at range, with at least an AP, maybe more, and then rushing into them with everything else in your army. So getting a standard for free helps you out, and you're 5 points less per stand that you buy above that. So Flame Berserkers, if you liked them before, you got to love them more now because they are better. The only thing difference is the resolve. I should say the resolve is actually down by 1. I think that's absolutely fine. I mean, you're Dweg. You have I think overall, a good defense. 4 is still a really, really good resolve. And it's less NPE for other players because a 5 resolve is not very fun to play against. Because then that means essentially you're not shifting them at all from resolve. It's almost to the point they might as well just be a dash unless you can really lower it. But overall, I think they're better. They took a little bit in the resolve, but that's okay. I think, like I said, high resolves, I think, become punishing and not a fun way. Hold Warriors gained Vanguard. Very, very useful. You're a slow army in general. I just did a quick search to make sure I was correct on my thought here. They're the only one with Vanguard in the army. So now at least you have that turn they come on 15 inches up. They are medium, so you can either get to a scoring objective. 15 inches should be enough to actually get you down to an objective. Or at least maybe if you end up coming from the side, getting you to the position you want, or setting you up well to catch up with your things like your Flame Berserkers, or who else are we looking at? That's probably the main thing I'm looking at. Or Whole Ballista. They're light and they have to get within 18 to shoot. So maybe the opponent's starting to approach them. Now you got your Hold Warriors able to jump in front. And they get their standard for free. So that's, like I said, a big thing that they're doing for a lot of these. You used to have to take 10 points for the standard. You're now getting free 10 points. And again, you probably were taking the standards anyway because you're wanting to charge. You want the extra movement. And actually, I should apologize. You do get that extra movement. So you're actually moving 16 that first turn. Because you get the extra from the standard. But also now you're getting your reroll on your charges. You're getting unstoppable, which is absolutely vital for this. Okay. So, great change for them. If you liked Hold Warriors before, I think you're going to keep taking. If you were thinking about them before and you weren't really sure, Hold Warriors are a really nice mainstay for almost everyone. Actually, everyone does take them as mainstay. So it's an easy way to get them. And if your problem was parts of your army were slow before, now you have a unit that can get in there and block off the charging lanes of your opponent. Even if your goal with them wasn't necessarily to get in and destroy anyone, because like, all right, you're 4 attacks, but you're, 2s and 2s. Shield, okay, so I guess 3s and 2s. But if you need something in the way, now you have a lot of options to get them into the way. And you can take some heralds as well to buff them out, depending on what you want them to do. And I said, if you're taking the banner, now you're saving a bit, so some of those buffs are a little bit cheaper to think about. Hold Thanes, 10 points cheaper. They didn't mark that in red, but they actually are a little bit cheaper. And free standard. So they used to have to spend 15 points for their standard. If you took them with standards as well, now you're saving 25 points, which is getting you reasonably close to about another stand. Halfway, I should say. These guys, especially when you look at their stats, sitting on cleave, hardened with shields, so they're on 4s and 3s effectively, with 5 wounds, all of that. This was a unit you were going to take that standard on because you wanted to be able to rush into your opponent. Especially, you're showing up a little bit late, so you want to be able to make maybe potentially longer charges, so a little bit more move, but also longer charges. You're probably spending that 15, now you get the 15 for free. So Dweg didn't necessarily get tons of points changes. They did get a few. There's some spots where some points have definitely dropped a little bit. But what's also nice about it is they got some more stealthy points changes depending on the way you ran the list. Maybe now you can take some upgrades that you weren't looking at before, or get an extra stand if you were taking multiples of some of these ones we talked about getting that upgrade. Magma Forge had lots and lots and lots of changes. So it's essentially a brand new profile for the Magma Forged. Magma Forged now are 10 points cheaper. And they are 5 points cheaper per stand. They're going to get the free banner. So saving 15 points there. Move is faster. So they move 6 now. But they lost in most of the other main categories for stats. So they're now only 4 attacks instead of 5. Resolve is 4 instead of 5. I'm happy with that. Resolve 5 is oppressive, I think. And defense 3 instead of 4. So they are less defensive and everything entirely. Their aura death went to 4. Pretty comparable if you weren't running big squads, because before at most you were getting 6 because their aura death 2 base each. Now they're sitting on 4. They used to be lethal demise, so they would harm you if you're hitting them, which this is a unit that with those sort of stats is going to rush forward. Although, depending on what you're hitting them with, you probably weren't necessarily hurting them on defense 4 and resolve 5. So what they did instead is they gave them cleave 2. I have to say, I'm a fan of the changes on Magma Forged. A little bit cheaper, including the banner, is a nice way to save me some points of things I probably wanted to do anyway. Lethal Demise, I don't think is as useful on a unit like this, because they're kind of designed not to really get hurt. Unless, I guess, I throw my Blender unit at them, and then I have to think about, okay, how's my defenses on my Blender unit? So, okay, maybe it was a deterrent in certain spots where you rush Magma Forged in, they're going to sit there and swing, but they're not necessarily getting through the opponent. They're more of letting the opponent activate and cause them damage. That's what the Aura Death and Lethal Demise would do. Now with the Aura Death 4, you can plink some damage on the people, is all well and good. But with Cleave 2, and you're now 4 attacks, you actually are hurting something. Here's your now medium who's going to have a very different role than it did before. To me, before, this was sort of the anvil that you would throw into someone's hammer. Now, it's much more of a hammer rather than that anvil. And because of those changes to his defense and resolve, it's not surviving the same way it used to. So, would I take Magma Forged? Absolutely. But I'm taking them for a very different purpose. However, if you want something to maybe blunt an opponent's attack, Warriors now with that Vanguard have a better shot at getting into there first. Maybe they can just stop someone or get in the way, and then Magma Forge can rush in with their Cleave 2 to remove your opponent who doesn't have nearly as good of armor now because of those stats. This army has Cleave in a variety of spots. We see a decent amount of it in ranged as well. So here's a nice change to get it into what I feel is a strong medium unit. At least personally. Inferno Automata. They used to be Aura Death 2 per stand. They are now Aura Death 4 total. And they gained, 2 attacks. So they're your light brute. I've only seen them a couple times. I don't know if that's enough to put them on the board. I don't know. Maybe they're actually really good. I just don't see them. And that might be the people around me just don't run them or don't want to run them. I will admit sometimes in play groups, especially say my play group, if people don't like the look of certain models, they don't necessarily run them. So I haven't seen these guys in a while. I think it's good changes. My guess is they needed it. So if you play this kind of thing, let me know if that suddenly brings them to the board. Last change is, of course, just the Herald of Magma, because the way our death works is different now. There gives Aura Death 4. That's it. So every spot where you had Aura Death before, now you're getting a 3 or a 4. You're got not really a change on your Steel Shaper. And some of your units in general gained free standards and often lost some points. You're really only looking at the Magma Forge being the one that kind of got the overall revamp. Okay, so where do I think this puts Dweg in general? Okay, If you had a previous Dweg list, whatever that list was, you don't have to change it, I don't feel. I think whatever your list was doing before is still doing it probably just as good. Potentially a little bit better, depending on the sorts of things you were running. But no changes here. I'm sure there's some people who complain about, say, what Magma Forge do or something else. Losing your Resolve 5s in 2 different spots. But there's nothing here that has to fundamentally alter if you enjoy your list. However, there is some things that maybe before you weren't considering that now have either greatly changed purposes, like I said, like Magma Forged, or been added some potentially new purposes like warriors, or now you have essentially free banners, which was something you were probably wanting to take anyway. So maybe now you're saving enough points to get an extra stand or take an upgrade on one of your characters that you weren't necessarily doing before. We also took a look at just some of those upgrades. Again, not too many differences. That's probably good. We don't want them redesigning everything all the time. And we know everyone's getting a redesign at some point. We know this particular time was Nords and Wadrun. We know next time is 100 Kingdoms. So everyone will get hit at some point, and the people who did before will get changed again. I have to say, overall, I'm very positive with the changes. But caveat to that, I'm not a Dweghom player. I don't like them, personally. People who play against them, play my one friend Manny, he plays them. I have nothing against them. I will play a game against him any day. Love to play the guy. I'm just not a big fan of the army. But I don't, that doesn't color my opinion or anything like that in terms of playing against a person or saying, oh no, that army, like, no, cool, let's play whatever. But they're just not for me. So I have a harder time getting enthused about the things they do for them because I just know they're very, very much not me. I do have to say, though, if you're a Dweg player, I think you're happy with this. Is there more you probably wanted done? Yeah, let's face it. There's always more. You want to be, when you're looking at something like this, that in the middle. You shouldn't want what I have is now amazing and no one will ever stop me. Because that's not fun. The same way as you wouldn't want it to be where everyone else got such the glow up that you're falling behind and getting crushed. Once I've done all the reviews, I am going to do a ranking of who got the most kind of thing. That'll probably be next week. I think that ranking will be out because I'm going to use this week to get the rest of these out and some other stuff. So are there players who probably want more done? Yeah. But I think they only did things that help you. They didn't do anything that harms you. And I didn't notice glaring weaknesses in the Dweg before. I do think, double Hellbringer, Drake, sorcerers hanging out on top, stuff like that is still exceptionally strong. And it seems like it stayed just as strong. They didn't do anything about that. But maybe now they changed enough of other pieces that maybe you do some other considerations. Or like I said, if you're playing for fun, bring whatever you like. But overall, happy with what I see. Let me know what your thoughts are as well. Let me know if you actually like what happened for the Dweg. Keep in mind, if you want to buy anything for Dweg or anyone else, we do have that discount code. It's in the show notes below. We also do a Patreon. I don't push that as much. It's in the show notes as well. But for you guys, I always push this more because you can get something out of it as well. All right, that'll do it for this particular video. You'll hopefully see this probably on should be like a Tuesday or something like that. You'll see another one after that and so on. Going to try to get through the rest of the factions this week. And then next week, rank overall thoughts on it and just some other videos related to Conquest. All right, well, on behalf of everyone here at the show, then, have a good hobbying. It's a great gaming.